Kong Min-jae didn't flinch as the shards scattered across the polished stone of his penthouse office. His lieutenant, Park, stepped back instinctively, fear flickering across his weathered face. The other men around the table sat frozen, their expressions carefully blank. "Say that again," Min-jae said, his voice quiet as a knife drawn from its sheath. Park swallowed hard. "The shipment was intercepted. The Americans—" "I don't care about the shipment." Min-jae leaned back in his chair, the expensive leather creaking under his weight. At 32, he commanded Seoul's most feared criminal organization, with the cold efficiency of a surgeon removing a tumor. His tailored black suit cost more than most people earned in a year. His dark hair swept back from a face that could have belonged to a film star, if not for the absolute emptiness in his eyes. "I care that you're wasting my time with problems you should have solved before, bringing them to me." The room held its collective breath. Min-jae's gaze swept across the assembled men, and he felt the familiar contempt rise in his chest like bile. Weak, all of them. They feared him, yes, but they didn't understand him. No one did. That was how he preferred it. Emotion was a liability in his world. Love was a weapon your enemies could use against you. "Sir," another man ventured carefully, "your cousin is getting married next month. He asked if you'd bring someone to—" Min-jae's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Marriage. Another cage people willingly walk into." He stood, moving to the floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the glittering Seoul skyline. "Let me make something clear to all of you. I don't do relationships, I don't do love, and I certainly don't date black chubby women." The casual cruelty of the statement hung in the air. Several men shifted uncomfortably, but others laughed, relieved to have the tension broken. Min-jae continued, his tone conversational, as if discussing the weather. "My preferences are simple. Thin, Korean, obedient. If she can't fit through a narrow door or speak my language, she's not worth my time." He turned back to face them, his expression utterly indifferent to the prejudice dripping from his words. "Beauty has standards, gentlemen. I have no intention of lowering mine." Across the city, in a boutique hotel suite overlooking the Han River, Amara Okafor stood before a full-length mirror, adjusting the delicate gold chain at her throat. The hotel room was elegant, but understated, much like Amara herself. At 28, she had built a reputation as one of the most sought-after international business consultants in Asia, specializing in helping companies navigate cross-cultural partnerships and ethical restructuring. Her phone buzzed with a message from her assistant. "Car arrives at 7. The Choi Foundation Gala is Seoul's event of the year. You'll make quite an impression." Amara smiled, slightly, her dark eyes reflecting in the mirror. She knew what that meant. In rooms full of Korean elite, she would stand out. Her rich brown skin, her curvy figure, her very presence challenged the narrow beauty standards that dominated Korean society. She'd faced it before in Tokyo, in Hong Kong, in Singapore. The stares, the whispers, the subtle exclusions. But Amara hadn't built her career by shrinking herself to fit into spaces that weren't designed for her. She'd done it by being undeniably excellent at what she did, by carrying herself with a quiet confidence that demanded respect rather than begging for it. She reached for the red dress hanging on the closet door. It was a deep crimson, elegant and sophisticated, with clean lines that complemented her figure without apology. Not loud, not desperate for attention, but absolutely refusing to be invisible. The Choi Foundation Gala was held in one of Seoul's most exclusive venues, a modern architectural marvel of glass and steel that seemed to float above the city. Inside, Korea's most powerful figures mingled beneath crystal chandeliers, their laughter and conversation mixing with the soft classical music from a live string quartet. Min-jae arrived fashionably late, as always. He'd changed into a navy suit that cost more than a luxury car, his appearance calculated to project power and wealth. The gala was merely another chessboard, another opportunity to expand his influence. The Choi Foundation, officially a charity organization, was actually a convenient front for laundering money and forging alliances between legitimate business and the underworld. He moved through the crowd with practiced ease, accepting greetings with minimal acknowledgement, his handshake brief and perfunctory. Everything bored him: the forced smiles, the obsequious conversation, the women who threw themselves at him, hoping to become the one who could tame the infamous Kang Min-jae. He was nursing a glass of expensive whiskey, half listening to a politician drone on about infrastructure projects, when the murmur in the room shifted. The main doors opened, and Amara walked in. She didn't make a dramatic entrance. She simply arrived, her posture impeccable, her expression serene. But something in the room changed. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Heads turned. The red dress moved like liquid fire as she walked, her natural grace making the movement seem effortless. Min-jae found himself staring before he could stop himself. She was everything he'd claimed not to want. Her skin was dark and luminous under the chandelier light. Her figure was full and unapologetic, curves that the dress celebrated rather than hid. Her hair was styled in an elegant updo that showcased the graceful line of her neck, and yet he couldn't look away. "Who's that?" he asked, interrupting the politician mid-sentence. The man followed his gaze and smiled knowingly. "Ah, that's Amara Okafor, Nigerian-American consultant. She's here, working with the Kim Corporation on their international expansion. Brilliant woman, from what I hear. Turned down 3 different marriage proposals from wealthy businessmen in the last year alone." Min-jae's jaw tightened. He told himself it was merely curiosity. She was an anomaly, that was all. Interesting in the way a rare painting might be interesting. "Introduce me," he said. Amara was speaking with the Choi Foundation's director when she became aware of someone approaching. She'd felt eyes on her since she arrived, nothing new there, but this gaze felt different. Heavier, more intent. She turned and found herself facing one of the most striking men she'd ever seen. He was tall and lean, with the kind of aristocratic features that seemed carved from marble. But it was his eyes that caught her attention, dark and fathomless, studying her with an intensity that bordered on predatory. "Miss Okafor," the politician said, slightly nervous. "Allow me to introduce Kang Min-jae. He's a prominent businessman here in Seoul." Amara extended her hand, her smile polite but reserved. She'd heard the name, of course. Everyone in Seoul's business circles had. Kang Min-jae wasn't just a businessman. He was a ghost who walked in daylight, a criminal empire wrapped in expensive suits and legitimate investments. "Mr. Kang," she said, her voice warm but professional. "A pleasure." His handshake was brief, his palm cool against hers. "The pleasure is mine. I don't believe I've seen you at these events before." "I don't attend many galas," Amara replied smoothly. "I prefer to spend my evenings working or reading. But the Choi Foundation does important work." Something flickered in Min-jae's eyes, amusement or irritation, she couldn't tell which. "Important work? Is that what we're calling it?" The politician laughed nervously and excused himself, clearly wanting no part of whatever was about to unfold. Amara tilted her head slightly, studying Min-jae with the same calm assessment he was giving her. "I'm sorry. Was that supposed to be cynical or knowing?" "Perhaps both." He took a sip of his whiskey, his gaze never leaving her face. "These charity galas are rarely about charity. They're about power, connections, money changing hands beneath smiles and champagne toasts. And yet you're here," Amara observed. "I never claimed to be above it. At least you're honest about your hypocrisy." The words hung between them, sharp and clear. Around them, several people had gone quiet, shocked that anyone would speak to Kang Min-jae with such casual dismissal. For a long moment, Min-jae simply stared at her. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. It didn't reach his eyes, but it transformed his face nonetheless, making him look younger, almost human. "You're very direct," he said. "I find it saves time." Amara's expression remained pleasant, unbothered. "If you'll excuse me, I see someone I need to speak with." She walked away without waiting for his response, leaving, Min-jae standing alone with his whiskey, and a feeling he couldn't quite name churning in his chest. No one walked away from him. No one. Over the next hour, Min-jae found himself tracking Amara's movement through the gala. He told himself he was merely observing, professionally curious about this woman, who seemed so utterly unimpressed by wealth and power. She moved through the crowd with easy confidence, her conversations animated, but never loud, her laughter genuine when it came. She was standing near the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the Seoul skyline, when he approached her again. "The view is better from my office," he said. Amara glanced at him, one eyebrow raised. Is that supposed to be impressive or an invitation? Can't it be both? It's neither. She turned back to the window. I've seen enough penthouse views to know they all look essentially the same. Height doesn't make something beautiful. It just makes it distant. Min-jae felt irritation spike through. Him. Why did this woman keep challenging him? Why did she refuse to play the game everyone else played? "You don't like me very much," he observed. "I don't know you well enough to dislike you," Amara replied evenly. "But I don't particularly like what you represent." "And what do I represent?" She finally turned to face him fully, her dark eyes meeting his without flinching. Power without purpose. Wealth without wisdom. A man so convinced of his own superiority that he's forgotten how to be human. The words should have made him angry. Instead, they did something worse. They struck something deep inside him, a place he'd buried so thoroughly, he'd forgotten it existed. "You think you know me," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "I know men like you." Amara's voice was gentle, almost pitying. "I've met them in every city I've worked in. They think money and fear are the same as respect. They surround themselves with people too afraid to tell them the truth, and they die lonely, wondering why their empires feel so empty." Before Min-jae could respond, an explosion of sound shattered the elegant atmosphere. Screams erupted as gunfire crackled through the air. The massive windows facing the street spiderwebbed with cracks. Min-jae's instincts kicked in instantly. He grabbed Amara's wrist and pulled her down as another volley of shots rang out. Around them, guests were diving for cover, security personnel rushing toward the sound of chaos. "This way," Min-jae commanded, pulling Amara toward a service entrance he'd noted when he arrived. Always know the exits. It was a rule that had kept him alive this long. They burst through a door into a narrow service corridor, the sounds of panic muffled behind them. Min-jae's mind was already racing, calculating. This wasn't random. Someone had targeted the gala, which meant they'd targeted the people inside, which meant they'd targeted him. "Are you hurt?" he asked Amara, his tone clipped and professional. She shook her head, her breathing rapid but controlled. "No. What was that?" "Assassination attempt, most likely." He pulled out his phone, sending a rapid text to his security team. "We need to move. This corridor connects to the parking garage. Who are they trying to kill? Does it matter?" Min-jae glanced at her, noting that despite the fear in her eyes, she wasn't hysterical, wasn't falling apart. "We're both in danger now." They moved quickly through the service corridors, Min-jae's hand still wrapped around her wrist. His touch was firm but not painful, and Amara found herself struck by the contradiction. This man, this criminal, was protecting her. They reached a storage room, and Min-jae pulled her inside, locking the door behind them. The small space was filled with cleaning supplies and extra linens, barely enough room for both of them to stand. "We'll wait here until my men secure the building," Min-jae said, releasing her wrist. Amara leaned against the wall, her heart still pounding. In the dim light filtering under the door, she could see Minjai's profile, sharp and aristocratic. His breathing was steady, his posture alert but relaxed. "This is normal for you," she said quietly. "Violence. Danger. It's part of my world. What a terrible world to live in." Minjay looked at her then, really looked at her. In this small space, he could smell her perfume, something subtle and expensive. Could see the pulse hammering in her throat, the way her hands trembled slightly even though her voice remained steady. "Why aren't you more afraid?" he asked. Amara's laugh was soft and slightly bitter. "Mr. Kang, I'm a black woman who built a career in countries where people who look like me are often treated as curiosities at best, threats at worst. I've been underpaid, overlooked, insulted, and underestimated more times than I can count. Fear is something I've learned to function through." Something in her words struck him with unexpected force. He'd never considered what it might be like to move through the world carrying that kind of weight. His power, his privilege, had always been assumed, never questioned. "That comment I made," he said suddenly, "at the beginning of the evening, about not dating. Women who look like you." Amara's eyes met his in the darkness. "I heard." "How?" "One of the servers overheard your men laughing about it. Word travels fast in spaces like these." Her smile was sad. It wasn't surprising, just disappointing. Minjay felt something unfamiliar twist in his chest. Shame. "I was wrong." "Yes, you were." Amara didn't let him off the hook, didn't make it easy. "But the question isn't whether you were wrong, it's whether you're capable of being better." They stayed in that storage room for 20 minutes, waiting while Minjai's security team swept the building. The conversation that unfolded in that small, dark space was unlike anything Minjay had experienced in years. Amara talked about growing up between two cultures, never quite fitting into either. About building her career through excellence, because mediocrity was never an option for someone who looked like her. About learning to value herself in a world that constantly told her she wasn't valuable enough. And Minjay, to his own surprise, talked about the loneliness of his position, the isolation of being feared rather than known. The way his empire had grown so large that he sometimes felt like he was drowning in it, suffocating under the weight of his own power. "Why do you do it then?" Amara asked. "If it makes you miserable?" "Because I don't know how to do anything else." The admission came out raw, unguarded. "Because stopping would mean admitting that I've wasted years of my life building something hollow. It's never too late to choose differently." "You don't understand my world." "No," Amara agreed, "but I understand being trapped by your own choices. And I understand that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit you were wrong and choose a different path." When Minjai's phone buzzed with the all-clear, they emerged from the storage room to find the gala had been evacuated. 3 people had been injured in the shooting, none fatally. The attackers had escaped. "I'll have my driver take you back to your hotel," Minjay said, his professional mask sliding back into place now that they were no longer alone in the dark. "I can get my own car," Amara replied. "I insist. It's the least I can do after putting you in danger." She studied him for a long moment, and Minjay felt exposed under her gaze, as if she could see through all his carefully constructed armor. "All right," she said finally. "Thank you." In the car, they rode in silence, the city lights streaming past the windows. When they pulled up to her hotel, Amara paused before getting out. "Mr. Kang," she said, "I hope you find what you're looking for. But I suspect you won't find it in the places you've been looking." She was gone before he could respond, disappearing into the hotel lobby without looking back. Minjay sat in the car for a long time after she left, staring at nothing, feeling something shift and crack in the foundations of who he thought he was. The next morning, Minjay called an emergency meeting with his inner circle, Park arrived looking nervous, as always. The other lieutenants filed in, taking their usual positions around the table. "Find out everything about Amara Okafor," Min-jae ordered without preamble. "Where she's staying, who she's meeting with, everything." Park nodded, making notes. "Is she a threat?" Min-jae's jaw tightened. "She's something. Just do it." The report came back within hours, and Min-jae read it alone in his office, his expression growing more complex with each page. Amara had grown up in Lagos until she was 12, then moved to New York when her father got a position at the UN. She'd excelled academically, earning a scholarship to Columbia University. Built her consulting career from nothing, turning down multiple offers to join established firms so she could maintain her independence. She'd faced discrimination and harassment throughout her career, but had never filed a lawsuit, never made a public complaint. Instead, she'd simply gotten better, more excellent, more undeniable. She donated 30% of her income to organizations supporting women in business across Africa and Asia. She'd turned down a marriage proposal from a Korean chaebol heir because, as she'd reportedly told him, "I won't be someone's exotic trophy." Reading about her life, Min-jae felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Admiration. Not the calculated respect he gave to useful allies, but genuine admiration for who she was and what she'd built. And beneath that, something more dangerous. Desire. Not physical desire, though that was certainly present, but a deeper longing to know her, to be known by her, to be seen as something other than the monster he'd become. He was still sitting with the report when Park knocked on his door. "Sir, there's a problem. Lee Jin-ho found out about the woman. He's saying she's a liability, that you're getting distracted." Min-jae's eyes went cold. Lee Jin-ho needs to remember his place. He's gathering support. Some of the other families think you're compromised. The message was clear. In Min-jae's world, showing interest in anyone was showing weakness, and weakness was blood in the water. That afternoon, Min-jae showed up at the Kim Corporation headquarters, where Amara was in meetings. He told himself it was business, a legitimate reason to be there. But when he saw her walking through the lobby, professional and composed in a navy suit, his heart did something complicated in his chest. She spotted him, and her steps faltered, just for a moment. Then she approached him with that same calm confidence. "Mr. Kang, this is unexpected. I have business with Kim Sang-woo," he lied smoothly. "What about you? How is your project progressing?" "Well, thank you." Her eyes searched his face, looking for something. "I heard there was some trouble after the gala. Are you all right?" "I'm always all right." He paused, then added quietly, "Thank you for asking." They stood there in the busy lobby, people flowing around them like water around stones, and neither quite knew what to say. "Would you like to have coffee?" Min-jae heard himself ask. Amara's eyebrows rose slightly. "With you? Is that so difficult to imagine?" Actually, yes. But she was smiling, just a little. "But I suppose I could spare an hour." They went to a small cafe near the Han River, the kind of place Min-jae would never normally visit. Too public, too ordinary. But Amara seemed to like it, and he found himself caring about that. Over coffee, they talked about everything and nothing. Books they'd read, cities they'd lived in, the strange isolation of being successful in industries that didn't always want you there. "Do you ever wish you could just be normal?" Amara asked, stirring sugar into her coffee. "Every day," Min-jae admitted, "but I don't think I remember how. It's not that complicated. You just have to care about things that don't benefit you, people who can't advance your interests, moments that don't serve a purpose." "Like this?" "Like this." Min-jae looked at her across the small table, this woman who challenged him and saw through him and somehow made him want to be better than he was. "I meant what I said," he told her, about being wrong, about you. Words are easy, Mr. Kong. Change is hard. I know, but I want to try. Amara's expression softened slightly. Why? Because you make me remember that I used to be human, before I turned myself into this. He gestured vaguely at himself, at the expensive suit and cold demeanor. And I think I'd like to be human again. For the first time since they'd met, Amara reached across the table and touched his hand. Just a brief contact, her fingers warm against his. Then be human, she said simply. Choose it. Every day. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Over the next 2 weeks, Min-jae tried to do exactly that. He started showing up at the places Amara frequented, not to intimidate or impress, but simply to be near her. They fell into a pattern of coffee meetings, walks along the river, conversations that stretched long into the evening. His men noticed. His enemies noticed. Lee Jin-ho confronted him directly, warning that this infatuation was making him weak, making him vulnerable. Min-jae didn't care. For the first time in his life, he cared about something more than his empire. Someone who made him question everything he'd built his identity on. But Amara was careful, guarded. She let him close, but never too close. She enjoyed their conversations, but always left first. Always maintained distance. You're afraid, Min-jae said one evening, as they stood on a bridge overlooking the river. Of course I'm afraid, Amara replied. Your world is dangerous, and you're not stable yet. You're changing, yes, but change takes time, consistency, proof. What do you need from me? I need you to choose who you want to be, not for me, for yourself. Because if you change for me, it won't last. The moment things get hard, you'll resent me for it. The crisis came 3 weeks after the gala. Lee Jin-ho made his move, attempting a coup that would have removed Min-jae from power and likely killed him in the process. The attack was coordinated, brutal, and it forced Min-jae to make a choice. He could crush the rebellion with maximum violence, reassert his dominance through fear and bloodshed, prove that he was still the monster they all believed him to be. Or he could do something different. Min-jae chose different. He exposed Lee Jin-ho's corruption, his side deals with rival organizations, his plans that would have destroyed the fragile balance Min-jae had maintained for years. But instead of executing Lee, instead of making an example through violence, Min-jae offered him exile. Leave, he told Lee Jin-ho in front of the assembled families. Take your money and disappear, because I'm done playing this game by the old rules. The decision cost him. Several families withdrew their support, viewing mercy as weakness. His income dropped by 40% overnight. Some of his most loyal lieutenants left, convinced he'd gone soft. But Min-jae stood by his choice. The problem was that his choice had also put Amara in danger. Lee Jin-ho, bitter and vengeful even in exile, sent word that Amara was a target, that she'd be used to hurt Min-jae, to prove that caring about anyone was a fatal mistake. When Min-jae told her, Amara's response was immediate. Then I need to leave Seoul. No. The word came out fierce, desperate. I can protect you. At what cost? Amara's eyes were sad but firm. More violence? More death? Min-jae, I won't be the reason you slide back into the darkness, and I won't let my life become a battlefield for your choices. So that's it? You just leave? I leave, so you can figure out who you want to be, without the complication of protecting me. And if you actually change, if you actually build something better than what you had, then maybe. She trailed off, not willing to promise something she wasn't sure she could deliver. The night before Amara was scheduled to fly back to New York, Min-jae stood outside her hotel, rain pouring down around him. He'd sent his security away, dismissed his driver. He was just a man standing in the rain, trying to find the courage to walk away from the only person who'd made him want to be better. Amara found him there an hour later, soaked through, still standing like a statue. "You're going to catch pneumonia," she said softly. "I don't care." She stepped closer, under the awning but still within reach. "Min-jae, what are you doing?" "Trying to figure out if I can do this without you. Can you?" He was quiet for a long time, rain streaming down his face, mixing with something that might have been tears. "I don't know," he admitted. "But you're right. I have to try. Because if I can't change for myself, if I can't choose to be better because it's the right thing to do, then I'm not worthy of you anyway." Amara stepped forward then, closing the distance between them. She reached up and touched his face, her palm warm against his cold, wet skin. "6 months," she said. "Change your life. Build something real. Something you're proud of. And if you do, if you really do, then call me. And if I fail, then at least you'll know you tried." She kissed him then, gentle and brief, a promise and a goodbye all at once. Then she walked back into the hotel, leaving Min-jae standing in the rain with the taste of hope and heartbreak on his lips. 6 months later, Amara was in her New York office when her assistant buzzed through. "You have a visitor. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says you'll want to see him." Amara's heart skipped. "Who is it?" "A Mr. Kang Min-jae." She took a deep breath, steadying herself, then said, "Send him in." Min-jae walked through the door, and Amara's breath caught. He looked different, older somehow, but in a good way. The coldness that had defined his features was gone, replaced by something warmer, more human. He was thinner, like he'd been working hard, sleeping less, but his eyes were clear. "Hello, Amara." "Hello, Min-jae." She gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Please, sit." He sat, his movements careful, like he was afraid of breaking something precious. "I did what you asked," he said without preamble. "I left the organization, sold off the criminal enterprises, laundered one last time to make everything clean, and donated most of the proceeds to charity." Amara's eyes widened. "Most?" "I kept enough to start over. I'm building something new now. Legitimate. It's a consulting firm that helps organizations transition away from unethical practices. Kind of ironic, I know. And is it working? It's hard. Harder than anything I've ever done. Because it requires me to be honest, to be vulnerable, to admit when I don't know something." He leaned forward, his eyes searching hers. "But it feels real. It feels like I'm actually doing something that matters." Amara felt tears prick her eyes, but she blinked them back. "I'm proud of you. I didn't do it for pride. I did it because you were right. I was dying inside that life. And meeting you, having you see through all my armor, it made me realize I could choose something different." "So why are you here?" Min-jae stood, moving around the desk slowly, giving her time to stop him if she wanted. She didn't. He knelt beside her chair, taking her hand in both of his. "I'm here because 6 months ago, you told me to become someone worthy of you. And I don't know if I've succeeded. I don't know if I'll ever be enough. But I know I'm better than I was. And I know that I want to keep being better every day for the rest of my life. Min-jae, I love you, Amara. Not because you're beautiful, though you are. Not because you challenge me, though you do. I love you because you saw the person I could be even when I couldn't see it myself. And I'm asking if you'll give me a chance to prove that the change is real." Amara looked down at this man, this former monster who'd transformed himself through sheer force of will and the desire to be worthy of love. She thought about all the risks, all the uncertainty. She thought about how easy it would be to say no, to protect herself. But then she thought about courage, about the bravery it took to change, about the fact that love was always a risk, always a leap of faith. "Stand up," she said softly. Min-jae stood, his hand still holding hers. I need you to understand something, Amara continued. I won't be your redemption arc. I won't be the prize you win for becoming a better person. If we do this, we do it as equals, as partners. And you have to keep choosing to be better, even when it's hard, even when I'm not around to witness it. I understand. Do you? Because the moment you backslide, the moment you choose power over integrity or violence over peace, we're done. No second chances. I wouldn't expect any. Amara studied his face for a long moment, looking for any sign of the cold, cruel man she'd met at that gala. She couldn't find him. In his place was someone vulnerable, hopeful, and terrified of losing her. Okay, she said finally. Okay? Okay. Let's try this. Let's see if the man you've become can build something lasting with the woman you never wanted. Min Jae's laugh was broken and relieved. He pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her, holding her like she was the only solid thing in a shifting world. You were never the woman I didn't want, he murmured against her hair. You were the woman I needed to want. The woman who showed me I could be more than what I'd become. They stood there in her office, holding each other as the New York afternoon light streamed through the windows, and for the first time in as long as either could remember, the future felt full of possibility instead of predetermined fate. Because the woman he never wanted had become the reason he learned what he needed, and the man who'd claimed to have no heart had discovered it had been there all along, just waiting for someone brave enough to demand he find it. The path ahead wouldn't be easy. Relationships built on transformation never were. But they'd both learned that the hardest roads often led to the most beautiful destinations, and they were finally ready to walk it together. If you enjoyed this story of transformation and unexpected love, please subscribe to the channel for more compelling narratives. Leave a comment below, telling us what you thought about Min Jae and Amara's journey. And don't forget to like this video. Your support helps us bring you more stories that challenge expectations and celebrate the power of change. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.